Order. And I'm not going to use the gavel anymore. That was just a one-time thing. Okay. Can I get a motion to approve the past minutes? That's, I don't have to say who it is, do I? Can I have a second? Any discussion? All right, well, let's go. Before board member comments, you would like to say something, right?
I would like to say a few words. I did want to take a few minutes to recognize two of our engineering staff members that are leaving the organization this month. Brian Stone, our manager of capital construction, is leaving us after more than a decade of dedicated service to share his talents with another public agency. Brian has been extremely valuable in the execution of our capital improvement program and managing contracts associated with the program. He has mentored a great team of project managers and engineers and really helped increase the efficiency and quality of the projects that we deliver. So on behalf of all Loudon Water staff, I want to thank Brian for his service and contributions to Loudon Water and wish him all the best. In addition, Sarah Lothman, manager of capital design, is also leaving us after nearly 8 years of dedicated service to return to the private sector. Sarah arrived at Loudon Water just as we were entering the Broad Run Water Reclamation Facility master planning process. Her leadership was invaluable in charting a visionary course forward and helping evolve our organization's wastewater practice. Sarah has also mentored an incredibly capable team of project managers and engineers. Together, they have permitted and designed some of the most challenging and exciting projects that we've seen at Loudon Water. Again, on behalf of all Loudon Water, I want to thank Sarah for her service and contributions to Loudon Water and wish her the best going forward. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I think you had indicated to me that there'd been some questions recently about the ability of board members to participate electronically in different meetings, and I just wanted to give a very brief summary of what those rules are so everybody is aware of them. When the General Assembly amended the Freedom of Information Act, I guess 2 years ago, they did in some ways broaden the ability for board members to participate in meetings electronically. And essentially, it's at your determination whether you have a personal reason that you can't be at a board meeting. But they also put a limit on the number of times that you can participate electronically for a particular board or committee. And that is a maximum of 2 meetings per year or 25%, whichever is greater. It works out with our board meetings. Since we have 11 board meetings, that 25%, when you round it down, is still 2 meetings a year. So we have the basic rule under FOIA that says that you can participate electronically in up to 2 board meetings a year. But you also have the ability, if you are a committee member, to participate in that committee as a member electronically up to 2 times a year. They're 2 separate analyses. They don't count toward each other. And then if you are a board member who is not a committee member, but you wish to monitor what's being talked about in another committee that you're not appointed to, there are no limits. You can call in, as long as we're allowing or having like a Teams meeting set up. There's no limitation on the number of times that you can call in or participate by Teams just to observe. Since you're not a member of the committee, the 2 meeting limit doesn't apply. So hopefully that clarifies some of the questions. If any of the board members have questions about those rules or their participation electronically, don't hesitate to ask me.
And when you call into a committee meeting, if you're not on the committee, you can still participate.
Sure, but you're a non-member.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, I understand that. Okay.
What's the penalty if you go over the 2?
That's it. You're out, Marty.
I think that the penalty tried to participate. tried to participate electronically. Say, well, you can't be there, but you can't vote.
All right, board member comments. I'll go first. I just kind of, I don't know if Sarah's on the phone and Brian are on the phone, but I just like to personally thank them. I will miss Sarah's lanyard with the University of Texas on it, and she was just very informative for me on the wastewater plants. I mean, she just did she's very articulate in the way she explained things and didn't over articulate. And it was a great experience. And of course, I can't say enough about Brian. Brian is, and he knows how to keep me calm. He knows how to respond to me. He knows how to keep me focused and not go off the deep end. And especially when it came down to the construction administration issues. But, I'm certainly going to miss both of them. Sean, we'll go your way.
I just echo your comments, Mark. I think they both were terrific employees, and as chair, I thought they did a great job in their overview and their thoughtful analysis and so forth, and the patience in answering our questions. I'm sure they're rolling their eyes a few times, but yeah. And Brian, especially with his summary of our capital projects and so forth, I thought that was very helpful. And other than that, I wish everybody a happy Easter or happy Passover.
I'd first like to wish everybody a happy Passover and happy Easter. I think those two people are a great loss to this organization. And having been involved in construction with Fairfax Water, I am constantly amazed at the low change order percentage we have on construction contracts. And Brian is no small part of that. So anyway, I wish them luck, and I'm sad to see them go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to echo the comments. They've both been fantastic. And, as a board member, a lot of times you don't understand a lot of the engineering side. So they've been great at relaying those aspects to us, and I wish them well. And hope wherever they go, they find a great career path. So, and then happy Passover and Easter to everybody as well. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian and Sarah have been great, so I'm sad to hear that they're going. That's unfortunate for us, but I'm sure they'll thrive at wherever they're going. And so grateful for their participation here at the organization for all these past years. And happy Easter and happy Passover.
Yeah, Brian, sir, definitely lost a lot of water. Hard to find good people to remember. Just a nice story. One of my neighbors had a leak inside their home that they did not know about. And they were contacted by Loudon Water before the very large water. But they did end up getting a very large water bill. But they were shocked by the utility. They have moved here recently from Pennsylvania. They've done well. They've done septic or like system. Central system water. And they were telling me this story. They had no idea. I was when they told me the story. So how do you guys do that? Technology. I said, but they were just very appreciative. It was the normal bill's $100 or whatever. But they were contacted more than 2 weeks. So that's just impressive. So people know stuff like that. It's just a nice story.
Yeah, I'd like to echo the sentiments from the rest of the board members. As a new board member, I didn't know them that well, but from what I saw in presentations, they seem very knowledgeable and ability to convey information. And I'd like to wish them the best on the future endeavors. And as well, I wish everyone here present and on the phone happy Easter and Passover as well.
Thanks, Keith.
I just want to echo what Terry said, just to add to that thank you for your service and, Keith, you're right. We are two new board members and, since I've been on the board, it's always been very helpful. They're very articulate. They've been really detail oriented and, most of the time, as our board members have said, we don't understand most parts of the engineering because we're not from that background. But it's going to be missed. You both are going to be missed and, happy Easter to everybody and Passover too. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I want to also add one thing to the record that it's Jules' birthday.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Jules' birthday. Put that down.
Thank you. I'll get that in a minute.
Happy
I thought
birthday.
you guys were joking about that. Like,
We
oh, it's
were
my
joking.
birthday. I get to, happy birthday. I didn't know that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Carla, General Manager's report.
Thank you. We wanted to let the board know that Congresswoman Jennifer Wexton has requested a tour of our Trap Rock water treatment plant. We're very proud to provide her that tour, and that will take place next Tuesday. Plans are underway for the 2022 board retreat on May 19th with a rain date of May 24th. We will have workshop sessions on the Milestone Reservoir project, as well as the joint land management area. And we will also provide tours in the afternoon of Trap Rock, Milestone, and portions of the JLMA or joint land management area. So that's why we included that rain date. So hopefully we can get in all of those tours. Earth Day is April 22nd, which is an annual event to demonstrate support for environmental protection. First held in 1970, it now includes a wide range of events coordinated globally. And of course, Loudon Water observes Earth Day every day. So to help our community celebrate, we will be hosting groups from the Children's Science Center at our campus on Sunday, April 24th for an Earth Day extravaganza. Also, I wanted to note that April is National Safe Digging Month. And so I wanted to give a shout out to our utility protection team led by Leslie Placio, who ensure that Loudon Water uses the best practices in our excavation activities. ERCs through March totaled 406. And just a couple reminders, the CIP committee will meet on Wednesday, April 27th at 8 a.m. The Finance Committee will meet on Thursday, April 28th at 8 a.m. And if you would like to participate in any meeting remotely, please let Jewel know and she will forward a Teams invite. That's all I have.
And I think we all agree that it was a great presentation and with the committee, Jim's committee, I'm sure he would have talked about it if he was here. So that was a great presentation of all the things that you all do for the community, et cetera. So 1970, I was 14 and I bought, the first year it came out, it was the Earth Day. It had this big world on it, and I had a t-shirt and it said, "Give Earth a chance." And I had that t-shirt, until it fell apart. I bet you I don't fit in it anymore. Maybe one of my grandkids. But anyway, I remember that it was like my first protest thing was the Give Earth a Chance. All right, what's next? I forgot my laptop. So, oh yeah, are there any public people?
We do not, but I would like to remind board members to scoot your microphone closer and make sure it's turned on so that folks that
Okay.
are listening online can hear.
Okay. Could you not hear me or was it somebody else?
We could hear you, but there were a couple other
Okay.
folks that we couldn't hear. We have staff that's
Okay.
monitoring that, so thank you.
All right, let's see. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda, please? And a second?
Second.
Any comments? Everybody in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All in favor? All right. Okay, so John is going to
Okay.
talk about the audit committee.
Yeah, thank you. The audit committee met on March 14th, and it's our kickoff meeting to the annual audit. We all kind of laughed because I all drove in for a very short meeting, but we were all here in person, so that was good. And I understand that Mark, you're dropping off and executive privilege.
Well,
that
Angelique did such a
too.
great job.
She
I
did. She
figured,
asked a
you
lot of good
know,
questions,
some great questions. I
know,
said,
so-
she should be on
she-
this committee instead of me. I did ask her first.
No, all good intentions go punished, right?
Thank you,
Good.
Mark.
Uh,
Appreciate
But
it.
welcome to the committee. I'm glad you're on board. So we fill that out. It was just a kickoff meeting. Nothing really earth-shattering to report. It was just to outline the normal scope that we do. We had our normal partners from Young Hyde Barber who came in. We did talk about having them look at the allocation of funds received through the municipal utility relief program to see how those were spent and so forth. But other than that, it's seemed like a non-event, and they've well under the way with their audit, as far as I understand. Brian is busy, but yeah. But no, it's good. I think again, this is a comment I've said in the past. I think they're a great group. They do a terrific job for us, and it's glad to have them back. So we'll hear more in the future as they progress.
I don't know
That's
what, somebody else was in the Water Resources Committee wants to talk about it because Jim's not here.
Jim asked me. if
Okay,
I-
good.
If I'd give a brief overview. So, yeah, the Water Resource Committee met on April 5th. Mark Peterson and Sue Crosby gave us a great presentation on Loudon Water's Customer Relations and Engagement Program. The Customer Relations Group is comprised of 19 individuals, 9 of which are customer service reps. So those are the people answering the phone. And they're getting roughly about 240 calls a day that they're fielding. She said that they sort of have to know a little bit about everything.
That's right.
So they also handle requests for financial assistance and escalated complaints. Their goal is to not let things get to Carla or us. So anyhow, that's great. And then there's the communications and outreach team, which works internally here at Loudon Water with other departments, but also externally with the county and the community at large. Some of the things they're involved with include developing collateral, making presentations, hosting events, working on social campaigns, conducting community outreach, things like this. And then finally, at the tail end of the meeting, Micah View provided an update on the Virginia legislative session. And Loudon Water's involvement is primarily through its membership in Virginia, the Virginia Association of Municipal Wastewater Agencies. And there's another one that's a mouthful, the Virginia Water and Wastewater Authorities Association, and then also the Loudoun County Legislative Review Groups. Those are the 3 sort of vectors that we're interacting with the General Assembly. One of the highlights Micah shared was regarding House Bill 919, which has passed, and it will require the state to adopt a maximum contaminant level for PFAS contaminants. The expectation, though, is that EPA is going to develop those MCLs prior to this taking effect, which is supposed to be July 1st, 2025. So we're still some years out. And then in terms of new discussions, new topics for the committee, there was a couple that were mentioned. One was on the drinking water quality report. Another was the future of the Purple Line, changes in DEQ nutrient requirements. Another one was wastewater testing for COVID and other emergencies in the future. And then the final one that I have here in my notes was the life of PFAS, CR6, dioxin, and other compounds as we're further exploring that. So that's all I've got.
Okay, action agenda. What's the thing that said none?
Consent.
Oh, okay, yeah, there's no consent. Okay, great. So now we have the action agenda. Going to talk, oh, Sarah Loftwood's going to talk. Cue it up.
Good afternoon. It's nice to see you all in person, and to Carla and members of the board. I really appreciate the kind remarks. It's definitely been a pleasure to be a part of the Loudon Water family for 8 years. I'm here this afternoon with Jennifer Kaberline. So I wanted to first start off and just kind of facilitate a quick introduction to Jen, since this is the first time that she's been joining a board meeting. Jen is a new senior member of the capital design team. She is not new to Loudon Water in the sense that she, as a consultant, supported some Loudon Water projects in the past, and we're really lucky to have her as a member of our team. I believe we've also got Mike Hanna on the phone with Black and Veatch. So Black and Veatch is serving as our professional advisor for the work that we've done. So Jen's gonna take the lead shortly, and if there's questions that come up that we can't answer, we've also got Mike at the ready. So can you skip forward, Jen? One more. I'm going to provide just a little bit of background on this project. So you can see there's 6 little yellow pins that are shown on this map, and that's the location of 6 small community wastewater treatment plants. So these plants are common in that they are all surface water discharge. So the wastewater is treated and then returned to a creek or a stream. And they are all going to have to comply in the future with ammonia discharge limits. So currently the plants don't actually remove ammonia, and we know that as the permits get renewed, we're going to have to comply with those regulations. So this is something that we were anticipating, and back in 2020, we actually added a project in the CIP to plan for this work. Next slide. We have been before the board to talk about this project and the ammonia regulations. In early 2020, Kinsey Downs, who is our manager of remote facilities, came forward and talked a little bit about the regulations and what we were expecting to see. And later in 2020, we actually brought forward to the CIP committee a task order to actually do the planning for these 6 wastewater plants. The goal of that evaluation was really to understand what type of infrastructure improvements do we need to make in order to comply. Coming out of that, we had a really good sense of the work that we needed to do. We haven't actually had a project where we had multiple facilities that all had similar timelines and similar objectives. So we really, we had this big regulatory change, and we really challenged ourselves to, okay, we need to think smart about what is the best way to do this work. So we actually did a project delivery evaluation after we finished the alternatives evaluation, that planning task order last summer. And we've worked through that process. Jen is going to talk in detail about what it's looked like. But we're here today with a recommendation for you.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and thank you all. It's nice to see everyone and meet everyone virtually. And second here. So in terms of the delivery evaluation, sorry, I'm having a quick technical issue. Okay, so just to provide a bit of context on the project. So here we are today. So I know our timeline here is showing the CIP committee meeting at the board meeting today, preparing to request approval to move forward with an alternative delivery mechanism for the ammonia removal project, and specifically the progressive design build mechanism. And so you can see on the timeline here, it shows the targeted completion for each of the 6 projects, or the 6 plants that are included in this project. And you can see that the projects are really stacked. There's potentially 6 separate projects here that are stacked back to back. They all have very similar goals. And so thinking about the timing and the similarities between the projects, the similarities in the goals, that really caused us to think, could we look towards an alternative delivery method other than the traditional design bid build to help us streamline the design and the construction of these projects and to optimize our Loudon water resources to meet the goals. And another point that I want to just make here is that Waterford and St. Louis, those are the first two plants in this project that have a targeted completion, and those are within the first 5 years of the project. So that's just something to think about as we move forward. Okay, so in challenging ourselves to think about alternative options for the contracting mechanism, we first looked at what delivery methods are available to us. So this slide here is showing the three mechanisms that are typically utilized for water and wastewater projects. There's the traditional design bid build, and then also the collaborative, the construction management at risk, or CMAR option. And I won't get into too much detail here about the traditional design bid build or the CMAR, but if anyone has any questions, please feel free to stop me. I know these diagrams are used very frequently and they're very helpful, but they're not very intuitive. So please just stop me if you have any questions here. But a couple important notes on the traditional design bid build. So again, it's traditional. It's how we typically contract projects, and it's the preferred method of contracting per our procurement guidelines. And you know, the way that design bid build works is that we contract separately with a designer and with a contractor, and the contractor is brought on board at the end of the design, and they are brought on as part of a competitive bidding process, and the lowest bidder is selected as the contractor. And so again, this is the traditional tried and true method. We know it works, but in some cases, it's not always, the optimal method for the project. And so for an example, looking at the CMAR process, that's the process that's currently being utilized as part of the Milestone Reservoir project. CMAR is not necessarily conducive for the ammonia removal project. And also the ammonia removal project actually does not meet the requirements per our procurement policies. The CMAR, the projected cost needs to be above a certain amount in order to use CMAR. And the ammonia removal project is actually expected to be less than that. So CMAR is off the table. So we're really looking at the traditional design bid build and then also the design build. And within design build, there's the progressive design build that we have highlighted here. There is also another term that's used is the lump sum or fixed price design build. That's another design build option. That's not really applicable here for the ammonia removal project and for treatment plant projects in general. So, again, we're going to focus on the progressive design build, but I just wanted to throw that out there in case you have some familiarity with the lump sum and the fixed price design build. So the way that the progressive design build works is that we as the owner contract directly with a single entity that is comprised of the design build of the designer and the contractor. And you can also see there's a piece up here with the advisor with the bridge into the design build team. And that's our professional advisor. So similar to the Milestone Reservoir project where we brought Black & Veatch on as our professional advisor, we've also brought them in here as part of the ammonia removal project to help us guide us through these delivery mechanism evaluations. And assuming, that we're moving forward with progressive design build, we'll continue to retain Black & Veatch as our advisor to help guide us through the process. So again, the owner contracts directly with a single design build entity. And the way that it works is that we progress the project to a specific design level, for example, the 60% or the 90% design level, and we arrive at a guaranteed maximum price. And just to mention, up until that point, we really have the option to provide as much input as possible during the design, which that's really critical for us. with treatment plant projects especially. But if we arrive at the GMP and for some reason we're not able to negotiate a GMP with the design build team, the progressive design build mechanism actually allows for an off ramp. So that's another reason why progressive design build is potentially beneficial, and that off ramp would actually allow us to go into a competitive bid. That kind of gives us a safety net there. But one other thing I want to mention too is with the procurement of the design build entity, that's actually on a qualifications based a process. That's not through the on a cost base. So it's a little bit different there from the typical design bid build. But thinking about the cost of the project, just by the nature of the design build mechanism, having the contractor on board from the beginning really allows for more confidence in understanding the cost of the project throughout the life of the project. So the contractor is able to provide up-to-date pricing that really will help us to make decisions related to design throughout the life of the project in order to ensure that we are aligning with our budget. And then another important point too with having the contractor on board early and as part of that design build team is they have the opportunity to procure equipment earlier on in the project as compared with the traditional design bid build. And considering the current market conditions, when you look at costs and you look at the ability to procure equipment and materials, that's really a big benefit here for going with the progressive design build. So I know I just ran through that pretty quickly. Does anyone have any questions before we move on? Okay. So why explore collaborative delivery? I think I just pretty much went through that with the previous slide in talk. Oh, yes.
Sorry, we have a question.
Yes, hi, Jennifer.
Sorry.
Just on the design build, familiar with contracting, it looks like a lot of the risk from the bidding process is transferred onto the contractor because they're required to spec out the design as well as the build at the same time. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. And that brings up another important point too, is that having the contractor on board actually reduces the risk for change orders during construction as well, because you have that the input from the contractor throughout the design process. And so they're able to provide the insight. So you typically land at less change orders during construction. But yes, to answer your question, that's correct.
Yeah, I was just curious whether there, from a risk analysis perspective, moving from the design bid build to design build, do you foresee any other risks that aren't associated with a contractor that Loud and Water would be taking on because now it's all being done in one phase?
So that's a good question. And I think I would say that the biggest risk that we probably face is that this project, the progressive design build, is very similar to the CMAR and how we move forward with the Milestone Reservoir project, but we haven't actually implemented a progressive design build project. So I would say that that's probably the biggest risk, but we're able to rely on a lot of information gained from the CMAR process that we've been engaging with the Milestone Reservoir project.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, so the benefits of progressive design build, really one of the main points here is that it provides a streamlined path to allow us to comply with the permit requirements as part of the project. So, thinking back to that timeline where we had potentially up to 6 separate projects at 6 different facilities, different designers, different contractors, allowing us to bundle all of those projects together into a single project with the progressive design build mechanism, that really helps to optimize our internal resources. So that's really one of the big benefits there. Again, back to the cost control, having the contractor input throughout the design that allows us to make design decisions that align with our budget, and we have earlier cost certainty throughout the life of the project. And again, back to the point about risk assignment, understanding and navigating those current market conditions, having the contractor on board really helps to mitigate some of that risk. And then also the risk for change orders during construction. And then the last point here is also important with the increased consistency of design. So bundling packages together in the progressive design build, that allows the consistency between projects. So our same staff operates and maintains these same facilities. And so having consistency between these facilities really helps from our resources perspective, being able to operate and maintain these facilities. So consistency is really important here. So progressive design build, it looks really great. A lot of potential benefits here, but in order to arrive at the decision to potentially move forward with progressive design build, we had to go through a very thorough evaluation to compare the progressive design build against the traditional design bid build. And so we really had to prove that it would provide the benefit to Loudoun Water. And so we conducted a very thorough evaluation process. And that was done with members throughout our organization in engineering and operations, and then also from the GMO office. And so that was really helpful for us to get perspectives throughout the organization. And it was guided by Black & Veatch, our professional advisor, and the steps that we took were consistent with the procurement policy and also the Virginia Public Procurement Act. And so really what we did was we compared multiple alternatives for comparing the design bid build against the progressive design build. So we looked at traditional design bid build with a single contract for all facilities, traditional design bid build bidding out the 6 separate projects, progressive design build with all the projects lumped together, and then progressive design build with all of the projects contracted individually. And so we developed criteria for scoring the alternatives by looking at the drivers and the goals of the project. And so we evaluated these alternatives to determine, which delivery methods and alternatives provide us with the maximum ability to meet our schedule for compliance and the target completion dates. Which delivery mechanism provides us the flexibility to manage our resources, and then, which allow us the optimal quality, and then also the most cost certainty among the alternatives. So we worked as a team to score the alternatives according to these criteria, and we arrived at the consensus that using progressive design build with the bundled projects really most closely aligns with our goals. But I'm actually going to skip 2 slides here. And looking at the timeline, with the progressive design build and bundling the projects together, it really made more sense to us, not necessarily to bundle all of the projects together into one, but perhaps to bundle just a few projects together that have the closest compliance deadlines, so Waterford and St. Louis. And, that it also made sense to bundle these 2 specifically together, Waterford and St. Louis, because they're very similar in terms of their scope. So, that really was very apparent that we need to bundle those together in the same project. And then also Elijah Heights has a target completion date that's relatively similar. It's a little bit further out there from Waterford and St. Louis, but the improvements there are relatively minor, and it doesn't make sense to incorporate that into its own project. So we bundled that into Waterford and St. Louis, and then ultimately arrived at the recommended delivery approach to bundle St. Louis, Waterford, and Elijah Heights together into a single progressive design build package, and then to treat the rest of the facilities, so Raspberry Falls, Selma, Aldi, and Skills separately. So those have a later delivery target. And so, we'll take on the progressive design build and then see how that goes and potentially implement that for Raspberry, Selma, Aldi, and Skills. So that is the recommended approach. And then just looking at, again at the timeline and how that works with the target completion dates. So then looking at the schedule moving forward, so today requesting approval to move forward with the progressive design build for the ammonia removal projects. And then from there, moving into a two-step procurement process. And we would anticipate being back to the board about this time next year, requesting approval to move forward with the design build contract. And then from there, moving forward into design and construction.
Yeah, and I have a question real quick.
Yes.
This is Brent. How did we pick which water treatment plants we wanted to address first?
So that's actually based on, so these right here, Waterford and St. Louis.
Yeah, for instance, like why would we do Waterford first versus Aldi first, or St. Louis first versus Raspberry Falls first, for instance? I'm sure you all have a reason why, but I was just curious what the logic was.
Yeah, so that's actually based on when the regulations require us to have that, to have those plants complying with the ammonia removal regulations. And so with the permit renewal starting in 2023, that is when DEQ will impose the ammonia removal requirements. And we typically have about 4 years to come into compliance with those regulations. So really that's where these target completion dates come from. It's really based on the regulations.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, great. And you said when did the regulation take effect?
So the regulations we anticipate will take effect starting with the 2023 permit cycle. So it's whenever permits are up for renewal.
So 2023, and you're saying we've got 4 years to address these from that point?
That's correct. Yeah. And Sarah, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, so each individual plant has its own permit that has its own renewal date. So these are all staggered. So once a plant is up for renewal, we expect that new permit will actually include the ammonia limit. And then we have the timeline to come into compliance. So that's really what Jen is saying, what drives the compliance dates. They're all different because their actual renewal dates don't coincide.
Gotcha. Okay, so Waterford's renewal is coming due first out of this list of treatment plants?
That's correct.
Okay, and then in terms of completing this, so this is just, we're saying here on this timeline that we're going to begin working on Waterford, for instance, in mid-2025, or is this a complete, it says completion, is this expected to be completed by mid-2025?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. So that's one of the, in going towards the progressive design build, that allows us to sequence in the contract, requires the contractor to sequence the plants in order to achieve the milestones here. So for the target completion dates. So yes, we are saying that construction, even though it's spanning beyond the targeted completion for Waterford, we would write into the contract that Waterford needs to be completed first and by this date. And so it provides the contractor with flexibility to utilize their resources going back and forth between Waterford and St. Louis in order to implement the improvements at both of those plants within the required timelines.
Gotcha. Okay, great. That makes sense. And then in terms of like margin for error here, you said we have 4 years. And I know these permits are renewing at different times, but how much of a margin for error do we have? Do we have like a year or a 2-year margin, or what do we have?
I don't think that it's that hard and fast. I think what we feel like is that by getting the authorization today and moving forward, we can comfortably meet the regulation. We are fully expecting as well that through the progressive design build, that we will be able to, in fact, gain schedule. So kind of what we lay out is a conservative approach, right? That the team, the design builder will be able to design, but similar to the conversations that we're having on the quarry, that because we also have the contractor on board, they're actually identifying the opportunities to accelerate schedule. And so once we really get that design builder on board, we believe that things will actually improve from a schedule perspective as they're identifying long lead items and early work packages. But even with the conservative assumptions that we made, we think that we're in good shape.
Thank you.
It's off. With the progressive design build and the bundling of the treatment plant projects, I would assume there's certain economies of scale that's being recognized. Could you highlight some of the major areas of cost savings that you're seeing or perceiving?
Yes, absolutely. So by having the contractor on board in order to yes, so there is an economy of scale by having a contractor that is conducting similar improvements at multiple plants. So Waterford and St. Louis were specifically bundled together because they both have relatively same scope. So it's both replacement of existing lagoon treatment systems with a packaged plant system. So because those projects are really similar, you have the contractor has the ability to utilize similar mechanisms and approaches at both of those facilities in order to gain that economy of scale and at the same time provide us with consistency between our facilities. And, you know, for example, from our end and having consistency between facilities is beneficial for our resources and our costs. For example, if you have a part at one facility that has a similar spare part at another facility, then you really only have to manage the part, you know, that goes between those two facilities. So it really, you gain economy of scale in the actual construction itself, but then also in the operation and maintenance with the consistency between the facilities.
I think you will also see the efficiency gained in design in that, you know, Waterford and St. Louis, as Jen mentioned, are both, they're both lagoon systems that are being replaced with package plants. So as we work with a designer and they're looking at technologies and they have similar limits, as we develop specifications for one plant and say, this is the style of pump and these are the acceptable manufacturers. As we go to the next plant, we have done a lot of the work. So there will be efficiencies achieved in that regard as well, I think.
Thank you.
I have a question. Is there any economy or does it make any sense to complete these a lot closer together rather than stretching them out? Especially since you're saying that there are a lot of design features that are the same. Why not try to complete them, more than one of them at the same time?
I think the work will coincide. So when we, you know, and I think it gets back as well, once we get a design builder on board and it's qualifications based with a major component also, you know, considering cost, we're going to select the right design build team. And as we look and lay out with them as well what our compliance schedule is, we will also be open to conversing with them about how it makes sense, right, from their perspective to design. If, you know, is it better to focus all of your effort, you know, upright to completely take the design, you know, work through the design on Waterford, well, and then going on to the next, or perhaps your, you know, there's more overlap or they're done together. I don't think any of those things have been fully baked at this point. We're definitely open to, again, what's going to be give the best result and the best value for Loudoun Water. And our design builder and our professional advisor will be involved in those conversations as we go. Absolutely.
Thanks.
I just have a quick question. This is Angeline. Are we gonna have subcontractors as well, or are we just gonna have premier contractors on this project?
So the primary contract that we will enter into will be with a design builder. So that could either, they have to have some type of a team or a partnership. So you could have a contractor in the design builder role with a sub being their engineering team or vice versa. I think when it comes to the actual construction components, similar to what we see on most projects, there's specialty contractors. You will have, instrumentation and controls and programming and electrical subcontractors. I fully expect that you will see those different subs on the projects, what they exactly look like, I think, and who they are. We often don't know, and we won't know at the time that we select our design builder. But yes.
The reason why I asked that question was actually I knew the answer to that, but thank you. I would just like to request and to Carla as well, as our general manager, that we as board members have an opportunity to know and understand who will be the subcontractors, because sometimes, it's can lead to conflict of interest as well. So that's happened in the past, and we want to be mindful of that again this time. Thank you.
And Angelina, just a thought, on our large projects, we often include in our bid form a provision where we identify a percentage of the work, and we request that if a contractor intends to sub out more than a certain percentage of the work, that those subcontractors be named on the bid form. So that, there are ways in which we sometimes have an indication on who a subcontractor is, but most of the time that's reserved for significant contract values.
I would agree with you, but at the same time, I heard you say it's based on percentage, and that's great to know, but at the same time, and I know you understand my point of view as well, that it's always good to know that, because sometimes, we just don't want to have a conflict of interest in any way. So percentage can be taken into consideration, and I fully agree with you, but at the same time, and just voicing my message here. Thank you.
Thank you all for the questions and comments. Anything else before we move on? Okay, so in terms of costs for the bundled progressive design build project with Waterford, St. Louis, and Elijah, so we're anticipating a total of $16.5 million between design and construction for this project. And just want to note that that this cost estimate was developed this time last year, so it does not necessarily account for the current market conditions and the volatility. So as we move forward with the project, we'll have a better understanding of the cost in our current market conditions. But just wanted to throw that out there that, costs are definitely a wild card right now. But as we move forward with the project, we'll have a better understanding of the cost there. But again, the benefit of having a design build entity on board and the contractor involved early on, we have a better understanding of the cost from a very early part of the project.
Just a question here. So that particular cost, when was that set up? Like, when was that cost come into play? What date or month, or is it last year, or just this year, or because it gives us, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, so so when was it developed? Is that the question?
When was it developed? Yes.
So it was developed in 2021. I think it was towards the end of 2021.
Okay. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, so moving forward, in order to implement a progressive design build for the project, we need to take the steps outlined here. And so we've been through these steps. And then the next step is to adopt the resolution for approving the use of the alternative delivery method. So, any questions?
Jen, I've got one more. Will there be any disruption to the communities when we're making these improvements? Or is this able to be done in such a way that there are no disruptions?
So that's a good question.
And-
Sarah,
and
do
if
you want
that's-
to take
if
that?
That's a question that we can't know right now. That's okay too.
Yeah,
I
and I
know
think
Elysian
we're,
Heights, I know Waterford, and so
yeah.
I'm just wondering if that's a thing or if that's not even a consideration.
There will be no, the customers will maintain service, right? So the provisions for, any type of bypass pumping or pump and haul or, work like that, that'll all be something that the contractors will have to manage. But we have a responsibility to our customers to make sure that, they can do their dishes, all of that type of stuff. So absolutely. I don't know if that answers your question.
I don't think I asked it very well, frankly, but I'm thinking, does the plant have to be like shut down while we make these improvements, or can the thing continue to operate?
The goal is to maintain operation as much as possible. In the case of, Waterford and St. Louis, those are currently lagoon systems and they're being completely replaced. And we have available land on those sites. So it will most likely be that we will be constructing a new treatment plant adjacent to the existing one. And then once that is built, basically swap over and then be able to decommission the existing plants. So
Perfect. Yeah, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. Thank you. This is always good. Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we authorize the general manager to proceed with design, build, procurement for the community system ammonia removal project.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Uh,
Aye. All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I know. That's I kind of, I actually flustered in the beginning. I was like, I or.
Can I just ask, this isn't the time. We don't have to remove ammonia now, not required. That.
So there's a limit or something to,
Yeah, I'll have to defer to Sarah on that one, but I'm
Okay.
assuming there's a limit and this is to
okay,
lessen that. But Sarah,
okay.
fill us with your genius.
was the question, do we have ammonia limits there now? Is that
Do we
correct?
have, do we have ammonia there now, which we must if we're going to remove, and is that true? We have
Yes.
ammonia.
So right now, and I don't know, actually, Kinsey Kinsey's on the call as well, and he can actually tell you, they're really, BOD TSS driven permit limits. So they're not anything on par with what we have to do, at Broad Run.
In memory of Hobie, I want to ask, can we bottle it and sell it?
Just real quick, Sarah's spot on. Our limits today are probably stream-based and that they're pretty high. And this new regulation is going to cut it in half and it's going to really drive technology at these plants.
So no ammonia currently.
Depends on the receiving stream and possibly, but they're pretty elevated and they're pretty easy to achieve. It's just that, like I said, these new ones are going to be pushing the limit of technology, at least for small package plants.
I thought you were getting ready to ask a question.
No, I was not.
All right. The next is going to be Brian Carnes, and I understand from Carl that you're going to scream through this.
I will do it as fast as
And,
you allow me. Yes,
But only because I have to leave at 5:15 if possible.
absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, members of the
Brian,
board.
let's leave at 5:10.
I have to leave at 4:30, but okay. I'm here to seek your approval of the 5-year plan of finance for the years 2022 through 2026. So just a reminder how the plan, we put it together. We take the capital spending plan and the CIP, add in the operating budget and debt service, as well as your revenues, which come from user rates and availability charges. And that creates the financing plan to ensure that we have the funding available to meet our operating and capital needs. Just a couple highlights from the plan. The CIP covering the 5-year period from 22 through 26 has increased approximately 86 million from what you saw last year. As you know, we have some high dollar projects. Currently, Broad Run Phase 2 is underway. We're working on Milestone Reservoir. We have the JLMA expansion, and as you just saw, the ammonia removal upgrades as well. The growth estimates are in line with what the most recent county projections are, and the revenue and expense projections are consistent with the rate study that was completed in the fall of 2021. So the plan as presented does include a debt issuance of 20 million in 2024, and that is consistent with what was also presented in the rate model last year. That also included a approximate $20 million debt issuance in 2024. And just as a note, historically, we do typically underspend our operating and capital spending plan. But as mentioned, there's inflation and price increases, and so we are monitoring that closely as we move through the year. A couple of your coverage policies in the past, rating agencies had indicated that we have a reliance on availability charges. And so in 2018, you approved a new policy that said our total annual debt service coverage without availability charges must be at least 1 times. And in this 5-year period, it ranges between 1.96 and 2.77. Another policy is with availability charges, and that must be 1.5 times coverage, and that ranges between 4.13 and 5.55. So you're in good shape there. So this is a lot. I won't dive too deep into this, but this is all the revenues and expenses and debt service. And so what we try to get to is our projected ending cash balance for the year, and that is at the bottom, and you can see it decreases as our capital spending plan increases at the bottom. As you can see, 148 million and approximately 137 million capital spending plan for the next 2 years. And so we take that ending cash balance and then we look at the cash balance goal, which is 2 to 3 times the 3-year rolling average of your O&M and debt service. And the third column, which has your ending cash balance at 206 million, that's the year that we're projecting to issue $20 million worth of debt. Because as you can see, your 2 times cash floor is approximately $200 million. So without that 20 million bond issuance, we would be below the cash floor. So that's the current projection. And then the last thing we look at, all your coverage ratios are on the left side, and you can compare them to the actual results on the right. And as you can see, you're well above where you need to be for all of your ratios for the next 5 years. And so today we're asking for your endorsement of this plan. As you know, at mid-year, we do a review of both the capital and operating budgets, as well as our growth projections. And we will take the results of that and put it into the 5-year plan to see if anything has changed. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Hey, Brian. You have a lot of wiggle room on those numbers, clearly, which is great. Just out of curiosity, when you calculate debt service in the future on money you haven't borrowed yet, what kind of interest are you looking at? The forward yield curve, or how do you get it?
We usually typically use 3%, which has been a little higher than what we've seen the last few
Very
years.
conservative.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, we're probably going to need that wiggle room with all this inflation, and we just don't even know what's going to happen in the next few years. All right, can I have a motion to, or somebody else have something to say?
I forgot to put a motion slide, so I'm asking for your endorsement of the 5-year plan. Apologies.
One mistake a year. Wow, she called you out right away,
I know,
Brian.
that's okay.
Jeez.
Mr. Chairman, I will endorse the board endorsing. I will endorse the board endorsing. I will ask that the board endorse the 5-year plan.
We're approving this, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
This isn't just like a thumbs up, it's like an actual.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly, exactly.
Any other discussion? Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks, Brian.
there's no new business, there's no information items. Sure, we can pass on the monthly reports unless somebody has a question on those. And,
Closed meeting.
okay, I can't see, sorry. Yeah, what do I gotta say to get the closed meeting?
That the board move into a closed session to consider possible amendment of the Nova Park Loudon Water Reservoir Park Site Development Agreement.
Okay, what he said. If I had I would have read it, but we're not voting to go into closed session, are we?
We have a motion. We need.
Oh, okay. I'll make the motion. All in favor? Aye. All right,
Go.
turn off everything.